What was your income last month? What were your gross sales? What were your expenses? And what was your income? And how do you feel about those numbers? Also, what is the average listener to this podcast making in their business? How long have they been in business? How do they feel about all of that? That is what I'm sharing in today's episode. Your answers to my income report survey. Welcome to Explore Your Enthusiasm, episode 152 with me, Tara Swiger. Today we are looking at the results of the income survey I asked you all to fill out a couple weeks ago. It was around the end of February, beginning of March that I shared a link with you and asked you to fill it out and share your numbers and how you felt about your numbers. And now I am back with the report. Super, super interesting. So we're going to dive right into it. I wanted to let you know that the transcript for this has pie charts in it, which are really fun. And there are pie charts and there's more like all of this written out. If you go to taraswiger.com/podcast152, you will see the pie charts and you can download the transcript. taraswiger.com/podcast152. Scroll down, there'll be a box, put your email in the box and we'll send you the transcript so you can see this for yourself because the pie charts are fun. So let's dive right into it. First of all, there were some of the stats front. There were 82 respondents and 80 of them were doing this as a business and not just a hobby. So those are the ones that I've used here. Okay, so the two people who were saying that it wasn't a business and it was just a hobby, I've taken their responses out because I find that not very useful. So 37% of the respondents sell handmade products. 47% do patterns or designs. The remaining percent either have a retail business. There were 3 respondents with a retail business, or they do coaching or services. And that was another 3 respondents. So also 93.9% of you sell online, with 34% of you also selling wholesale. Okay. Now with that, I'm going to tell you some stats of like overall, but then I break it down into handmade products and designers because your business models are really different. Your marketings are really different. The way you guys feel about your numbers are different. So I've totally split it up. So what we're going to do is I'm going to tell you some overall numbers for everybody and then the average numbers for and then we're going to go into details for knitwear designers. So the average numbers, what I noticed, how you guys feel, and then I'm going to read you the responses from the person who had the highest profit margin. Then I'm going to do the same for the hand makers, talk about averages, how y'all felt about it, what I noticed, and the highest respondent. And when I put these all together in a report, the last time I did this about 2 years ago, I shared the responses. I did it in 2 different blog posts and we'll link to that on the show notes page. I put it in 2 different blog posts, the knitwear designers and the handmakers. And I considered doing it this time, but I think that it's helpful to listen to what other people that have handmade businesses are doing, even if they're not exactly like yours. And last time I also shared the responses of the highest and the lowest, and then I gave you like some examples in the middle. I've changed it up a little bit this time. I'm only sharing the exact responses from the highest on both because I think it's really interesting to hear what people who are doing it successfully are doing. It's less interesting to hear what people who are not making a profit are doing because there are so many of you in that space. And because what I noticed overall is that people who either didn't know their numbers or were deeply in the negative had a couple things in common. I'm going to talk about what they had in common, but one of them was making excuses. Like, well, I can't do it because XYZ. So the reason why I'm sharing the respondents who have the highest profit, like in final numbers of money they made, is because I want to take away your excuses. The fact of the matter is you can make money doing what you're doing if you have a solid base of profitability and profit margin, if you market your work to the right people, if your brand is on point and in alignment with both your pricing and with the market you're trying to reach, you can make a sustainable business out of it. You have to first accept that that's true in order to go on and do the work and figure out what exactly you need to do and the steps you need to take. So I want to show you that it's possible. That's what this podcast is about. That's what all my work is about, is like, let's assume it's possible. Now let's get down to work. So this episode is going to show you it is definitely possible. And here are examples in the way that people are thinking about it who are actually doing it. Because a lot of times it's not a matter of your knowledge. It's a matter of how you're thinking about it and framing it and the amount of work and effort you're putting into it. So when I asked what was your gross income from your business last month, I gave a couple categories so that we could easily categorize these. So 42.7% of you, your gross income, that is before you take out expenses. So your gross sales were under $500. That was 42.7% of you. So above zero, but under 500. The next biggest section was actually 28% of you make in between $1,000 and $5,000 in gross sales. And then the next biggest percentage was 17.1% of you make in between $500 and $1,000. So most of you, 70, 80-ish% of you make above zero and under 5,000 in total sales in a month. And keep in mind, this survey asked you for last month. So I think because most of you filled it out at the end of February or beginning of March, we're either talking about your sales in January or in February. And I also asked if this was an average month for you. And the results were kind of evenly split. About half the people said, yeah, it was average. And about half the people said this was actually an above average month. So I also asked, how long have you been dedicated to working on your business as a business? So 51% of you said in between 1 and 5 years, which is pretty much what I thought. By the time you're listening to this podcast or taking my classes or hanging out with me, you have been serious about your business for a bit. And 24% of you said 6 months to a year. And 11% of you said 6 months or less. Now, the remaining percentages were 5 years and over. So 51%, 1 to 5 years, 24%, 6 months to a year, and then 11%, 6 months or less. And then how long have you actually been selling what you make? 62% of you said 1 to 5 years. Now see, the difference between the two questions is how long have you been working on it as a business and how long have you actually been selling it? So a lot of you have been selling it for a longer amount of time than you actually have been working on it as a business. And then 22% of you said 5 to 10 years, which is super interesting because it's a very small percent. It's like 10% who've been treating it as a business for 5 to 10 years, but 22% of you have been selling it that long. And then another really interesting response, there's like everybody, when I asked what else do you measure month to month, this is pretty evenly split. 30% said total number of individual sales, like I had 13 people join my class versus the sales number, like that was X amount of dollars. 27% of you said social media followers. For that, I assume it's Instagram and Facebook. 22% of you said other. So I don't know. Those others ranged in things. And then 7% of you said website traffic. You actually measure website traffic month to month. So like I said, 37% of you do handmade products and 47% of you do patterns or designs. So now from here on out, we're going to talk about you split up into those two groups. So of the designers, and by this I mean people who sell their knitwear designs or sewing designs or crochet designs or cross-stitch designs as like a PDF or sometimes even in a kit. So last year, the last time I held this survey, the person who had the highest sales actually sold kits. She designed, but she sold kits, and that's where she was making her money, not just in her designs. This year, there are people who are selling individual patterns. There are people who are selling books of patterns and people who are working with publishers to be either in magazines or publish books. So the average for all of the designers' responses was $1,296.20. Here's the important thing to note though. I'm going to talk about dollars throughout, although many of you don't use dollars, you use euros or pounds. So I realize if I did the exchange rate, this number would come out slightly different, but many of you didn't tell me what your currency is. So I'm just going to go with dollars. So a few of you either put pounds or euros, but for these averages, we're just going to do it in dollars. So the average for all responses was $1,296.20. Now, when you take out the highest and you take out the lowest, the average was $891. And by the way, this counts in everybody who made negative. So of the respondents, some of you had a profit, some of you were like zero, and some of you were in the negative. So this takes all that into account. Now, when I asked how you feel about your sales, about 21 of you felt positive, 8 of you felt negative, and 9 were neutral. Like, right? So now these responses ranged in what you actually said, but if I had to classify like the mood of the response, 21 were positive, 8 were negative, and 9 were neutral. Now, most of the positives also said, I want to keep growing. So whether those positive responses were somebody that had made $2 or somebody that had made $2,000, almost all the positives said, I'm really happy with this, but I want more, or I want to keep growing my business. And a few of the negatives said, I know I need to work harder to meet my goals. Like, I don't feel good about it, and it's because I know I need to work harder. I think that's really interesting. Now, what I really thought was interesting is that most of the negatives, like the I feel negatively about it, blamed the industry. They said knitters don't want to pay enough, publications don't pay enough, it's not possible to make a living doing this job. But what's fascinating about this is the person who, first of all, let's back up. Many of the respondents were making a profit doing it. So all of the excuses, like people don't want to pay for it and patterns don't sell, that's not true, because people are making a profit. And then there are 4 that made over $2,000 a month. So that seems clear to me that your excuses don't hold up. Now, also interesting is, where do you think most of your sales come from? So 23 of you said Ravelry, 12 said Instagram, 5 said newsletter, 3 podcast, Facebook, 2 Etsy online search, and 1 said Amazon for like book sales. Or they said blog or my website or publications, or I don't know. So clearly most of you designers are selling on Ravelry. Then when I asked, what has helped your business the most? And this is super important. The most common answer, especially those with the highest sales, was consistency. I started doing things consistently and I saw my business grow. I heard that from almost everybody who answered this question and who had a more profitable business said consistency. And guys, I'm telling you about consistency all the time, right? That's always what I'm talking about. You can go back. There's an episode, I'll link it up in the show notes, that says that what your New Year's resolution should be is consistency. So then I asked, what kind of marketing did you do? The most common answers in order of frequency was Instagram, with 22 of you using Instagram, email newsletter, with 18 of you using that, Ravelry social media, 17, and then Facebook, blogs, and collaborations with other businesses. What I noticed is people who mentioned collaborations also had much higher sales than people who didn't. Instagram was all over the board. Speaking of Instagram, what I noticed is that y'all really care about Instagram followers, like a lot. And yet there's absolutely no correlation between Instagram followers and profit. So I asked you, what else do you track and what are those numbers? And several people gave me their Instagram follower count. And of course I could see that it was also, even though this is completely anonymous, if you give me your Instagram follower count and you give me your profit, then I can like see if the two correlate. And they did not in any way. So one person that had around 2,000 Instagram followers made $600 that month. And a person with about 4,000 Instagram followers, so twice as many, made $200 that month. So do you see? No correlation. 2,000 Instagram followers, $600. 4,000 Instagram followers, $200. So they do not correlate. What matters is how you use it. Are you making effective calls to action? Are you speaking directly to your people? Are you taking beautiful photographs? Are you linking to your website or your shop? Now, I'm going to give you the answers of the highest grossing person who responded to this survey. This was actually, keep in mind, designers, a knitwear designer was the absolute highest grossing respondent across the board, from retail shops to teachers and consultants, people who do what I do, to hand makers, to knitwear designers. So if you're a designer and you're saying that people don't pay enough for designs, whether it's publications or whether it's knitters. I'm here to tell you that's not true. So this person sells knit, crochet, or sewing patterns. They sell online to customers and wholesale or consignment. They've been working on it 5 to 10 years. So that's what you need to keep in mind. Their net, so after you take sales, subtract expenses, their net was $17,000 that month. They actually said that this was slightly lower than what she often makes. So what she says is slightly lower than my yearly month-by-month average, but that's normal as I have big variation month to month and a big spike in book launch months. So when I asked what she does, she said, I pay the bills, I put it in savings, the same thing most folks do with their paycheck. I have big swings in expenses when I pay the printer for a new book and income when a new book comes out or a pattern makes a big splash. So looking month by month isn't as useful as taking the longer view. When the survey asked, how do you feel? She said, great. I'm earning a very comfortable income and my business is growing. I do worry that lots of other people in my industry say they're having a hard time and you can't make a living. But for me personally, it's going great. And I asked, what else do you measure in your business other than dollars? She said, enthusiasm and engagement of my existing audience and audience growth. So mailing list, Ravelry group, Instagram, blog readers. So see, she's paying attention to how excited her people are and how much they're engaged and if her audience is growing. And when I said, where do most of your sales come from? They're on Ravelry, and she also does books on Amazon. And by the way, I'm saying she because I'm just making assumptions. This could be a he. What helps your business move forward? The answer is Instagram and mailing list. And guys, if you're not doing Instagram and mailing list, you are missing out. Now, what's the next question? Oh, so I said, what is the thing that has made the biggest difference in your business? Mailing list, and more important, being hideously consistent. I've gotten things out on schedule no matter what for years. She says, seriously, surgery, illness, death in the family, travel, dead pets, household emergency, the work, capitalized, still gets done no matter what. So I said, what's your income goal? She said, get my income to about $300,000, which should get my revenue to about $200,000. So keep in mind, she's keeping in mind her expenses and her profit, which feels very comfortable. And if I can do that while scaling back my working time to more like 3 to 4 days a week, I'll get there. Last year was close. I expect it will happen either this year or next. And then I asked, what is it like answering these questions? How do you feel? And she responded, I'm actually really proud of myself, but I feel awkward saying that because we're socialized to keep money private and not to be proud. And because there's some serious pushback against designers, people think they're making too much. So here's what I noticed. The person who had the highest the last time I did this survey, she said the same thing to me. She said, because I had a feeling about who it was and I emailed some friends and then I actually talked to the person. By the way, this year, I've not talked to this person. I have no idea who this is. Truly, truly. I've racked my brain. I can't figure it out. There's nothing in her word choice that gave her away to me. I will say that based on her spelling, I'm thinking she's American. So that's why I've said dollars and not pounds or euros. She didn't spell anything in a European way. But the person who I talked to last time who had the biggest sales had actually went back and anonymized some of her responses because she felt that her customers would not celebrate her doing well, but they would instead punish her. And she said, I really don't want it to be known how much I make in my business. What's hilarious about that respondent is that nobody had any idea who it was. I had people coming up to me saying, is it this person? Is it this person? Nobody guessed it. And it's because she doesn't talk about it. And that is totally your own decision. Now, this respondent said, I asked a question, anything else you want to tell me or the listeners? She said, I hate it when we send out the message that we need to be all arty, creative, sweetness, and light. And that if we treat it like a business, or heaven forbid, make good money on it, that we are somehow sellouts or less pure, or that we should feel bad about it. I treat this like a business. I work damn hard. I make a really good product. And yes, I make money. But that should be awesome, not something I have to hide. Ah, girl, preach. You said it. I agree. Just 100% I agree. And I'm so, so appreciative that responded, whoever you are, if you're listening, that you said that, because I've been preaching this and I'm glad to hear you preach it as well. So guys, if you make a good product and you're working hard, don't be shy about making it a business. A couple weeks ago, I gave you some tough love about, is it a business or is it a hobby? If you're treating it like a business, treat it like a business. Don't be ashamed that you want to make it profitable for you, because that's what's going to make it sustainable and good for your customers long term. Now, I also ask in the survey, what do you use for your bookkeeping? Because I know that's a question I get tons of, and I made a video about my own bookkeeping system. But she said I use GoDaddy bookkeeping. So before we close out this section on knitwear designers, I say knitwear designers, it could also be sewing designers, any kind of pattern designers. Here's what I learned from reading all of the qualitative responses to the survey questions, like how do you feel and what do you think about this and what do you wish I knew? The big thing is income doesn't correlate with happiness. We know that, right? But I really want you to know this in your business. I think we know, like, oh, money won't buy happiness in my life, but also money won't buy happiness in your business. You won't suddenly decide you're satisfied and proud of yourself when you hit a certain number. You can decide you're satisfied and proud of yourself if you're working towards that number. So in all of my talk about goal setting and being clear about where you want to go, it is only so that you can take the steps to break it down into action and then take that action and be proud of yourself for the action you're taking. All of this goal setting stuff that I do in my book, Map Your Business, I talk about this more. It's to stir you from inaction into action, because that's when you'll be proud of yourself. That's when you'll know you're doing good work, not when you hit a certain number. So the stats from y'all show me a designer making $1,200 a month was super stressed about paying her bills, while a designer with negative $200 in profit was super thrilled because she had just sold more patterns than ever before. And a designer who lives on the profit from her business of over $2,000 a month felt meh about her numbers. That's what she said, meh, because they've been stagnant for a while. So here's the thing. When you hear these numbers, it comes down to context. What is the context in which you are operating in? If you, like me, are living on the profit of your business, then it's really stressful when you don't hit your numbers to break even in your life, right? It's really stressful if you're not making enough to pay your bills and yet your business is the only thing paying your bills. That makes sense, right? It's just like if your job paid you less, it would be stressful. But when you are getting started, or actually you're just scaling up, or you're just starting to work hard at it, even having a month that you're negative, but you've sold actually more products, can feel amazing. Any amount of growth you can feel amazing at, even if you haven't hit a big number. That's what I want you to remember. And that's why I'm always telling you to celebrate all of your wins, because if you sold 0 one month and you've sold 2 this month, that's a win. That is on the way to making $17,000 in 1 month. Nobody goes from 0 to $17,000 in a month without putting in tons of hard work. And actually, I've never met a designer or a handmaker who has done that, because the numbers just don't make sense. Okay, so I want you to remember that going from 0 to 100 and 100 to 1,000 and 1,000 to 10,000, each step had to happen first. It was a step along the way, and it deserves your celebration and you being proud of yourself and you like stopping and celebrating right then. So with that pep talk, it's time to talk now about those of you who make a product and sell a product, not just your designs. So the average here was $660.21. Now, when I remove the highest and the lowest, the average actually goes up to $735.12. So in the designers, the average went down because we had $17,000 a month, weighing it too high. But in this one, when I take out the lowest, which was really negative, it brings it up. So the average $735.12. When I asked, how do you feel about your numbers? It was split evenly between great and totally freaked out, stressed out. Here I asked everybody, what are your goals? And in the product makers, 13 of you said full-time income, and 3 of you said part-time income. 3 of you said a small income, like to cover your expenses or to pay for a vacation. And then 4 of you had just general more. My goal is just more. 6 of you said, I want to have a real business, but without any number on that. Now, when I asked, how do you feel about the progress to that goal? The responses were overwhelmingly positive. Things like good, and I'm on track, and I know what to do. 22 of you said that, well, where 9 of you were negative towards the goal. By the way, the people who are negative towards the goal, their goals were vaguer. So if you said, my goal is to have more money, you probably don't feel good about your progress towards that goal. That's what I learned here. Or if your goal is just to like have a real business, you in general didn't feel good about your progress. For the people who are more specific, or they said things like full-time income or part-time income or an income that replaces XYZ, those people felt better about it because they could see it. See, that's why we're talking about goal setting. The more you can see it and the clearer you are, the more you can make progress towards it, or at least know if you're making progress towards it. Now, the number one sources of your sales, if you're a product maker, are tied between Etsy and social media, which I think is really interesting. After that is in-person events like craft shows and festivals, and then newsletter subscribers and website visits, and then collaborations, and then Google or word of mouth. When I looked at the results from the highest grossing product maker, these were her responses. When I asked, how do you sell? She said online to customers and at events, craft shows, fiber festivals, farmers markets. She's been in business. And again, I'm generalizing with she, 1 to 5 years. Her profit was $7,500. That's profit. That's after you take out the expenses. Keep in mind, for a knitwear designer, your expenses are probably pretty low, but for a product maker, the expenses are much higher because you have to buy the supplies to go into what you're making and selling. So having a good, sustainable profit in a hand-making business often takes longer, and that's why $7,500 is super impressive. And again, this person might have been dollars or euros or pounds. I'm not 100% sure. I can't tell from the spelling. And when I asked, is this your best month or is this an average month? She said, no, this is not an average month. It's my best month ever. And I said, like, why, what about this month made it different? She said, I'm starting to find my niche. Plans are in place to grow further in September when childcare eases. And when I asked how she felt pretty good and pretty positive. So she didn't give it any more answers to like deeper answers to the other questions I asked, like what's caused your success other than starting to find her niche. In other words, she's talking really specifically to the people who are going to buy her product, which is awesome. Now, I went to answer a few specific responses I got in a little more detail. So someone who said the sales were very slow and they've seen no growth also said, I still do not see results from social media marketing. I'd like to grow organically and authentically so I don't follow like others just in hopes they'll follow me. I can't seem to grow my following. I've read all the advice, but I feel like I'm missing something obvious. Now, the reason I wanted to respond to this is because the answer is yes, you are missing something obvious. And I said that with all the love in my heart. What you're missing is this. You need to go find your people. When I tell you to follow and like and comment on people on Instagram, it's not so that they follow you back. It's because if you are following and liking and commenting on the people who might be your customers, you are going to get to know your customers better. You're doing it for market research, which is super important. You're also doing it to figure out what they care about, what they're interested in, what kind of language they use, what kind of photos they take. And then yes, for some of those people, if you are really right for them, they will come and follow you back. But remember, it's not about growing your social media audience. It's about using it effectively. So my audience isn't that big, but I so often connect with my right people by following them that then it makes this podcast more effective because I answer your exact questions you post on your own social media pages. And then that makes you refer this podcast to other people. I will answer the questions in an Instagram post and people will be like, hey, so-and-so, you have to read this. This answered the issue I had. So then social media marketing is used to increase my entire business, not just my followers on social media. So what you're missing, based on what you said, and I don't know who this was or your specific site, but to grow organically and authentically, you have to go engage with people. And you have to go engage with the people who want what you're selling. That's organic and authentic. That's social. And that would be social if we were cavemen and lived back then. You would go, if you baked bread, you would go and talk to people who needed to buy bread. That's authentically sharing your work. And so you need to go and talk to them, not just so that they come back and follow you, but to figure out what they need. So if you baked bread and there's no internet, you would go and you would talk to people who need bread, and you would ask them, what do you do with your bread? How do you use your bread? You would watch them. You would see if you could see them, like what they're putting their bread on, which is less creepy on social media than it would be if you were like peering in someone's cave window. You go and engage with them to figure out what they need so that you can serve them better. That's super important. So you don't follow others in hopes that they follow you. You follow your potential customers so that you can get to know them and delight them and give them the solutions. It's a give and take. Respondent also said, I think it's a political climate that things are so bad. And they were interested to know if other people experienced lower sales since the election in November, or maybe even if you're British since the Brexit vote. Here's what I can tell you. I work with a lot of people whose businesses are having their best months ever. There were many respondents in here who actually said, this is my best month I've ever had. And it was like January, February. So there's a couple things here. Every business is cyclical. There will be down months and there will be not down months, like high months, right? The comic book business is cyclical. The handmade blanket world is cyclical. The knitting design world is cyclical. So it's best to compare your own sales month over month or year over year, right? So have your 2016 numbers every month and then compare 2017 numbers to last February 2017, March 2017 to March 2016, as opposed to March to February, because you're going to have cycles in your business. That said, it's cyclical and things do impact your growth. But as long as you're focused on things you can't change, like the president or the Brexit or the, we have 10% sales tax where I live. Now, shops can focus on that, but to what end? They can't change it. Instead, focus on the things you can change in your business. Focus on the effectiveness of talking to your customers. Focus on the message that you're sharing and does it resonate? Focus on the customers and how you can serve them better. Focus on what you can change. You can't change the political climate. You can only change what you're doing in your business and how you're best serving your people. Now, here's another thing I noticed. Every single respondent who said a version of nothing seems to work, which there are many of you, said nothing seems to work, either was not seriously tracking their numbers. And when I said, how are you tracking their numbers? I said, not really at all. Or they did not have a specific attainable goal. So one person said these three responses, and this is you. Know that I love you and that I want you to succeed. And that's why I'm answering you specifically. And also, if you did not fill out the survey, but you know this is you, I love you and I want you to succeed. So please listen. So one person said, I'm not trying to make any profit and nothing seems to work and my growth is painfully slow. Well, of course it is, honey. You have to try to make money. Your first thing was, I'm not trying to make any profit. So you're not going to make any profit and your growth is going to be slow. You have to set up your numbers so that there's profit, or else you're not going to have a business. That's what business is based on. That's what all of your decisions and all of your growth will be based on. You have to price for profit and you have to brand and market towards a market who will pay for the price that will have your business be profitable. To go back to everyone who said some version of this, nothing seems to work. It might be the political climate. If they either weren't tracking their numbers or they didn't have a goal. And here's the thing. If you're not tracking your numbers, then you have no idea if anything's working. Just no. If you don't know your website traffic month over month, your Instagram followers month over month, your sales month over month, then you cannot say that nothing's working because you don't truly know. You know in your gut, it doesn't feel like it's working as much as you wish that it would, but you don't know the actual changes. So you have to track and then make a change and then track. If that doesn't work, try something new. If nothing's working, then you try more things, period. That's the only way anyone ever makes a business, ever. And for those of you who think nothing's working, but you don't have an attainable and specific goal, we'll make a goal and then try things on the way to the goal. That's what my map making process is all about. It's in my book, Map Your Business, is doing big picture, breaking it down into goal, and then doing a whole list of things you could do to reach that goal. You don't actually have to do the whole list of things. You have to try a bunch of things and keep trying to make progress towards that goal. But if you don't have a specific goal, you don't know the things you need to do to get there. So, friends, if you are guilty of saying nothing seems to work, ask yourself, am I tracking this nothing? Like, what am I trying? And am I tracking it? And do I have a specific place I'm going? If you don't have a specific place you're going, any road will get you there, or no road will get you there, depending on how your outlook is. So I do want to say this. Some of you aren't profitable yet, or your profit's like under $500, but you have a clear plan and you're tracking your numbers. And if that's the case, baby, keep going. Keep doing it. You can do it. And I want to tell you this. Of all of the high profit respondents who had, let's say, over $1,500 in profit in 1 month, all of them had goals. They knew what their next goal was, and they knew their numbers, and they had a way of tracking. There is nobody who is making over $1,500 who did not have a way of tracking their numbers. And when I said, how do you feel about your numbers? Are you surprised? None of them were surprised. And that's not by accident. It's because they've been paying attention. Now, some in the $1,000 to $2,000 a month range were a little stressed because they had started living on their goal, but they knew what they were doing and they knew where they needed to go, and they were tracking and they were paying attention, and they weren't necessarily surprised. But of the people who had no profit and the negative respondents, many who felt negatively weren't tracking their numbers, they didn't have a goal, and they were totally surprised when they did their numbers. So of course they felt negative because they weren't on top of it, and it was a total surprise. Also, these people had a million reasons why they weren't profitable. And both my research assistant and I made notes about, like, they said they had no goal and that they were surprised. And then they gave a bunch of reasons why they weren't making money. Those things are all connected, and they're all connected in the form of your mindset. Are you making this a business or a hobby, like we talked about in episode 150? Or are you paying attention to where you want to go and committing and dedicating yourself and then showing up consistently? If you do that, your growth may still be slow, but you will feel better about it. And when you track your numbers and you know what's going on, you're going to feel better about it. Now, if you have a goal, or you have no idea how to reach it, or you have no idea how to start paying yourself, or you have no idea how to make sure that you're pricing for profit so that your business can actually grow, I can help you. I can help you learn how to track your numbers. I can help you figure out if you're going to be profitable or not. I can help you figure out exactly how many products you need to make in order to make the amount of money you want to make. We can take your goal and split it down into how many exact products to produce and to sell. I help you do all of this in my newly opened class, Pay Yourself. So Pay Yourself walks you through how to do every single step of that process that I just talked about. Having your goal, breaking it down into products, knowing your profit margin, knowing your break-even point, knowing when you're going to see money from your business. So hundreds of makers have already used it to discover their profit, their right pricing, their overall health of their business. People have used it to figure out that they can afford to build a new studio or hire new people. They've used it to figure out that they want to change their business or go into a totally different line or introduce a new kind of product or a new income stream. You can join now, because it's open now, at taraswiger.com/profit. And if you're listening to this when it comes out and you join before April 15th, you're going to get a chance to ask your questions in a student-only Q&A, which will happen mid-May. So join before April 15th and you'll get access to that Q&A where you will get to ask your question live, and I will help you with your exact numbers. So that'll come a couple weeks after you've started the class, so you've got your numbers and you're starting to get all of this together. But you can join anytime, taraswiger.com/profit. And if you have any questions about it, you're welcome to ask. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you a very enthusiastic, profitable, and goal-reaching week.